The night cracked open in a way I never expected, like a quiet street suddenly split by thunder. I had just stepped out onto the dimly lit balcony, the city breathing softly below, when a single sentence changed everything I thought I knew about love, safety, and the person living next door. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it hit harder than any shout ever could, because it came from a place I never thought to look, and it forced me to question whether the love I'd been searching for had been standing beside me all along. Before the story goes any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that some of the most powerful love stories are hidden in everyday lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel, The Kindness Chronicles. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and you never know who might need to hear this tonight. I had told my neighbor I'd just been on a date almost casually, the way you tell someone about the weather or a late bus. It wasn't meant to matter. The date itself had been fine in the way many first dates are fine: polite laughter, careful smiles, the subtle exhaustion of trying to impress someone who didn't yet know your worst days. I came home with that hollow feeling that follows when nothing went wrong, but nothing felt right either. As I stood there, leaning against the railing, my neighbor's presence felt familiar and safe, like the hallway light that always works when others flicker. And then she said it, not angrily, not even sadly, but with a quiet certainty that wrapped itself around my chest and squeezed. She said the girl wouldn't love me the way she did. That sentence echoed long after the night went silent. I had moved into that apartment building 2 years earlier, carrying more boxes than hope. Life had unraveled slowly for me before that, a relationship that ended without closure, a job that paid the bills but drained the spirit, and a growing sense that I was becoming invisible even to myself. My neighbor had been one of the first constants in that new chapter. We shared elevator rides, borrowed sugar and phone chargers, and exchanged tired smiles after long days. She was the kind of person who noticed things without making a show of it, like when my car wouldn't start and there was suddenly a thermos of hot tea in my hands while I waited for help. I told myself it was just neighborly kindness. I needed that lie to survive, because admitting how much her presence mattered felt dangerous. The truth was, she had seen me at my worst without ever demanding an explanation. She saw me come home late with slumped shoulders, saw the lights stay off some evenings when I couldn't summon the energy to exist properly, and she never pushed. Instead, there would be a gentle knock, a container of leftovers, or a handwritten note reminding me to lock my door. In a world that constantly asked for more than I could give, her care asked for nothing back. Still, when I started dating again, I didn't think of her in that way. I thought of dating as something separate, something loud and intentional, full of clear labels and visible gestures. What I didn't realize was that real love often grows in silence, watered by consistency, strengthened by patience, and hidden behind acts so small they're easy to overlook. After she said that sentence, the air between us changed. Not dramatically, not immediately, but subtly, like a shift in gravity. I started noticing things I had trained myself not to see. The way she remembered details I'd forgotten sharing. The way her eyes softened when I laughed genuinely instead of politely. The way she always seemed to know when I needed company and when I needed space. At the same time, the dates continued. Different faces, different conversations, all of them blending into the same pattern. I'd dress up, try my best, talk about my dreams in a voice that sounded rehearsed even to me. And every time I came home, something felt incomplete, like I'd been performing someone else's life. The struggle wasn't just romantic. It was internal. I had spent years believing love had to be dramatic to be real, that it had to arrive with fireworks and declarations. Accepting the possibility that love could be quiet felt like admitting I'd been wrong about everything that came before. It meant facing the fear that I might have overlooked the most important connection in my life simply because it didn't fit the story I'd been told love should look like. Then life did what it often does when you're avoiding the truth. It applied pressure. A sudden setback at work left me anxious and uncertain. Bills stacked up, sleep disappeared, and that familiar loneliness crept back in, heavier than before. I stopped dating altogether, too tired to pretend, too confused to explain. And in that silence, my neighbor remained. She didn't offer solutions she couldn't give. She offered presence. Late-night check-ins, shared meals eaten slowly, the simple comfort of someone sitting beside you while you breathe through the fear. That was when I realized the depth of my dependence scared me. Not because it was unhealthy, but because it was real. One evening, after a particularly hard day, I sat alone and finally allowed myself to trace the timeline honestly. She had been there through every version of me in that building, the hopeful newcomer, the broken-hearted recluse, the man trying to rebuild. She loved me not as potential, not as a project, but as a person in motion, flawed and unfinished. The change didn't come as a sudden confession or dramatic revelation. It came as clarity. Love, I understood then, isn't proven by grand gestures but by who stays when there's nothing to gain. It's proven by who knows your silence and doesn't try to fill it for their own comfort. When I finally acknowledged my feelings, the fear didn't disappear. If anything, it grew. Because this wasn't a stranger I could walk away from if things went wrong. This was someone whose absence would leave a real, aching void. But growth rarely comes without risk. The days that followed felt suspended, like the calm before rain. I noticed her watching me with that same quiet care, and I wondered how long she'd been holding that truth alone. How long she'd chosen patience over pressure, kindness over entitlement. The weight of that realization humbled me more than any rejection ever had. What moved me most wasn't the idea that she loved me differently, but that she loved me consistently. She didn't compete with the world for my attention. She simply showed up, again and again, trusting that if I was meant to see her, I would. And I did. When I finally chose to step toward what was real instead of what was easy, it felt less like falling in love and more like coming home. The fear didn't vanish, but it softened, replaced by a sense of steadiness I'd never known before. The kind that doesn't shout its presence but proves itself over time. This story isn't about choosing one person over another. It's about recognizing love in its truest form. It's about understanding that sometimes the person who loves you best isn't the one who promises you the world, but the one who quietly helps you survive it. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone who stood by you when they didn't have to, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and leave a heartfelt comment. Subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles, if you believe stories like this matter, because your engagement helps these messages reach people who may feel unseen right now. Before this video ends, I have a special request. In the comments, write one line about someone who showed you kindness when you needed it most. Your words might be the reason someone else keeps believing in love, patience, and second chances. Because sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't found. They're noticed.